Here is the English translation of your text. I am Clara Voss. About 2 months ago, I decided to escape the noise of the city and take a break from the pressures of work. An old caravan I inherited from my uncle, untouched for years, seemed like the perfect getaway, or so I thought. My destination was Silver Pine Valley, deep in the heart of Oregon, where the rolling green hills and endless dense forests promised peace and solitude. After hours of driving along a dirt road lined with towering trees shimmering under the sunlight, I arrived. I stopped at an open spot nestled between the hills, where the valley looked like a living painting. A small lake glittered with the rays of the evening sun, and yellow wildflowers clung tightly to its banks. I entered the rusty caravan, the scent of old wood and spilled oil rising from every corner. Each step on the wooden floor produced a faint creak, as if the caravan groaned under the weight of time. I opened the windows, letting the breeze brush my face, but it came heavy with an eerie stillness, like it carried secrets it had no intention of sharing. I laid out my simple bed, took out my camera to capture the sunset, then brewed myself a strong cup of Arabic coffee, its bitterness a sharp reminder that I was far from my daily routine. Once the sun had fully disappeared, I sat watching the star-filled sky, listening to the muffled roar of a nearby river, as if it were telling ancient stories in whispers. That was the first night. It seemed ordinary, but the silence of the valley felt like it was hiding something in its shadows. Before drifting to sleep, I whispered in my heart, "Tomorrow will be a new day." The second morning, I awoke to the sound of heavy footsteps on the dirt surrounding the caravan. I cautiously opened the curtains and saw shifting shadows between the trees, like a shepherd moving through his flock, except there were no animals and no shepherd to be seen. I told myself it must be deer, until I heard a sudden rustling sound that chilled me to the bone. At the front door, I found clustered handprints on the faded paint, small, like those of a child no older than 2, but oddly high, nearly 2 feet above my own height. My heart pounded as I stepped back. I tried to start the engine and leave, but there was no sound, no hum, not even a flicker on the map. The third evening. As dusk approached, I discovered my uncle's old journal buried under the driver's seat. The cover was torn, and its pages held together with worn-out tape. I raised my finger, and the dim light danced across faded ink that read, "They are here. Don't let them in. They followed me." Tears welled in my eyes as I read. Why hadn't he mentioned the place? Why hadn't anyone warned me about this valley? The third night. That night was the turning point. The caravan lights all shut off at once, plunging everything into total darkness. It felt like I had sunk into the earth itself. I grabbed a small flashlight, casting a tight beam of light around me. I heard 3 slow knocks on the door, then a faint pattern of tapping on the windows, in a geometric rhythm, a pentagon. Terrified, I bolted into the bathroom to hide. From behind the wall, I heard soft, slow footsteps, followed by whispers, unintelligible words, like children playing a secret whispering game. Then, complete silence, pierced only by a deep, chilling breath. That's when I saw them. Ghostly children clinging to the wooden walls, pale faces, eyes glowing dimly like embers. Black lines oozed from their small mouths as they slowly crept toward where I was hiding. I screamed. With all my strength, I broke the small window and jumped out, sprinting into the forest. Branches clawed at my pants, and dry leaves scattered under my feet as if begging me not to come closer. In the midst of this chaos, a faint green light glowed from the heart of the caravan. I cautiously approached. The creatures had gathered around it, moaning in hollow voices, "Stay with us." I rammed my shoulder into the caravan's back door in a desperate attempt to open it. when suddenly a cold hand grasped my shoulder. A foggy figure stood behind me, its head twisted at the same eerie angle I'd seen before, facing backward, lifeless eyes staring right into mine. Then, everything fell into deafening silence. I ran until I reached a gas station 10 miles away. The attendant called the police. They found the caravan abandoned, the engine cold. No fingerprints, no journal, nothing at all, no footprints, no trace. They told me I hallucinated, dehydration, stress. I returned to my apartment in the city, tried to forget those nights. But the very first night after coming back, I woke up to faint knocking on my bedroom window. I approached to open the curtains, and saw only small handprints on the glass, as if a child was praying to be let in. Then, under the flickering street lamp at the end of the road, I saw it, that pale ghost, its head tilted, staring straight at me. It stood there for a moment, then vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a whisper that still echoes in my blood. You won't escape this time. No one truly knows what lies within Silver Pine Valley. I'm not the only one who vanished or came back insane. I'm not the only one who heard the whispers in the night. They're not passing spirits. They are older and hungrier than death itself. Think 1,000 times before you take your caravan down that dirt road, because they never stop hunting. Let me know if you'd like this edited as a YouTube script or narrated in a specific style. It was me, a solitude-loving soul ready to inhale the forest's breath, and my only companion on this journey, a rusty old caravan bought with pieces of gold in a shady deal. I didn't care, though. All I wanted was absolute peace, far from the city's noise. I stood before it for the first time under a setting sun, seeing it as a weary metal shell. Yet inside, it felt warm, or so I convinced myself. I had stocked it with supplies, set up the cooking stove, and hung fabric curtains that didn't come with the caravan, trying to give this refuge a touch of home. The weight of work hadn't even fully lifted from within me before I decided to take a short break for my overburdened mind. Exhaustion stalked me at the office every morning, and the chaos of emails left no room to breathe. So, I booked a ride in an old ambulance-like transport vehicle pulled by a beat-up truck. We arrived at the entrance of Pine Hollow, a remote spot reachable only by those truly committed to isolation. I closed my eyes, inhaled the scent of cedar and fir trees, and felt a prick of hope that nature alone would be my doctor. I crossed the dirt road and disappeared into the embrace of towering trees that touched the sky. The wind slipped through a gap in the caravan's side like cold fingers brushing my cheeks, carrying damp whispers from the ground. As I explored the area, I noticed decaying wood and twisted trunks like the limbs of some ancient creature surrendered to age. I opened the caravan's door wide and stepped inside slowly, enjoying the distant sound of water trickling in a nearby lake and the sporadic chirping of birds. I organized the food shelves, lit the campfire outside, and placed my pepper bell close by, laughing to myself, I'm safe with this little shield. As the sun set, the trees transformed into towering shadows dancing in the dim light. The wind, as if embracing the body from outside, passed through wooden cracks, emitting a soft moan. The air grew colder by the minute, and the smell of damp earth mixed with the smoke of firewood. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply, and distant sounds came to me. Branches creaking under the movement of a night insect, leaves falling like pages from an old notebook being folded. Yet, with this heavy silence, I felt a strange comfort for the first time in months. On the first night, I didn't sleep well. The moon stood still in the sky, its pale glow reflecting off the caravan's wall. Suddenly, I woke to a faint sound from the roof. I assumed it was some animal crawling and closed my eyes again, reassured. Whatever it is, I'm here. But the sound returned. Slower, more deliberate, circling the caravan as if testing my heart. I peeked through the curtain. My breath fogged the glass, and a faint scent wafted in, the musty bark of decaying wood mingled with damp soil. I grabbed the flashlight, its beam fluttering across the metallic walls. In the darkness, I sensed something. 2 tiny red dots staring at me from outside. My heart stuttered, and a low growl emerged from those dots. The caravan shook beneath the weight of the sound. A stench, stronger than before, crept in, as if something fleshy and rotten was breathing just inches away. I tried to approach, but the door was suddenly being scratched. Rapid, relentless strokes like carvings on cold metal. I didn't know if it was a massive animal or something else entirely. All I knew was that this moment instantly earned its place among the most terrifying experiences of my life. The next night, the temperature dropped suddenly, as if fate's hand had fired up the frost. The silence deepened to the point I feared it might manifest into sound. At 3 a.m., the radio inside the caravan suddenly came to life with its constant static. Shh. Then it was interrupted by a muffled, childlike voice whispering, "Don't let it see you." The doorknob rattled, and the caravan swayed under a sudden gust of wind. I stepped cautiously toward the curtains and peeked out, only to see a terrifying figure 10 feet away. He was extremely tall, hunched over, with skin mottled like the cracked bark of a dying tree. He didn't have a face in the normal sense, just a dark void where eyes should be. I screamed in terror, my heart thudding violently inside my chest. I staggered backward, but the thing lunged toward me with a speed that didn't match its frail build. In a single moment, the caravan's back door shattered, and I hurled myself through the window, running like a madman. Branches clawed at my clothes, and the oak trees seemed to reach out for a deadly embrace. Behind me, I heard whispers in a language I couldn't understand, but their tone was certain. "It wants you here." I don't remember how I made it to the highway. I don't even know if my steps were guided by courage or sheer will to survive. A truck appeared, its headlights slicing through the darkness. A voice barked at me, "Stop!" I leapt into the cab and leaned my head against the cold glass, trembling violently. I tried to explain to the driver with broken words. Something, in the forest, wanted me. The door. He looked at me like someone watching a madman, but he drove me to the nearest populated spot. When dawn broke, the driver dropped me off at a nearby clinic. I saw suspicious faces and questions I knew I'd have to answer, but I refused to share the details, only saying, "It's better you don't know." After hours of examination, they sent me home. I searched for the caravan in the reported disappearance area, but they never found it. It was as if the earth had swallowed it whole, or the darkness had taken it. Now, when I return to my apartment, I climb the stairs feeling as though something is following me. I hear a faint scratching at the door. Then that damp scent returns, the smell of the dead forest. I pause and steady my breath. Is it really over? Or is something else, far out in the shadows, smiling, waiting for our next meeting? It was me, Mark, and Emily. 3 friends looking for an escape far from the city noise. Mark picked the destination. An abandoned caravan from the 1970s, leaning crookedly among the thick trees of Willowbrook. Its shattered windows looked like twisted smiles silently watching us. The caravan was a relic of forgotten times. Rusted metal, decaying shelves, and a stove that hadn't been lit in decades. But we didn't care. We thought we were in for an exciting adventure to spend our weekend. I needed a break from work stress. Mark wanted to take nature photos, and Emily was hunting for a new idea for her travel vlog. We drove down a narrow dirt path riddled with rocky pits, the air thick with a strange scent, like rotting leaves and old rust. As we approached the caravan, a cold breeze passed through the cracks in its metal walls, carrying damp whispers from the rain-soaked ground. The trees swayed like spider threads waiting for prey, and their wet leaves made faint creaking sounds as we moved through the branches. We lit a campfire near the caravan, and the flames danced quietly, too quietly, as if something behind the tree trunks was watching us. At midnight on the first night, I woke up to a sweet-sour, unnatural smell, like meat left under the sun. I exchanged glances with Mark and Emily. The confusion was clear on their faces. Then came the soft knocking at the caravan door. Exactly 3 a.m. Emily shouted, "Who's there?" Silence. Then the door slowly creaked open on its own. The moonlight outside revealed nothing but a dark void. Then louder knocks returned. The walls and metal began to shake under a deep vibration, and a long, metallic groan echoed from the roof, like something testing its strength. Emily's flashlight flickered on, revealing a shadow crawling on all fours. Its spine twisted like tree branches, its head tilted to one side, and no clear features. The shadow vanished before our breath could catch up. The second night, the temperature dropped without explanation, and our breathing turned to white clouds, like ghosts blending into the dark. At 3 a.m., as we restarted the radio, static hummed, and then a child's voice broke through, "Don't let it see you." The door trembled, ready to collapse. As the LED lamp flipped inside the caravan, we saw her, a woman in a torn nightgown, hair tangled with filth, eyes like hollow pits, and her mouth sewn shut with a thick thread. Emily sobbed, "We're sorry. We're leaving now." One by one, the stitches of her mouth snapped with a wet sound. Then her jaw cracked open with a sickening thud. A deep voice crawled from her throat. "You woke me up." The wooden floor beneath us shattered, and bony claws lunged at Mark, dragging him into the depths with the sound of bones breaking. Emily and I ran into the woods, their whispers begging, "Stay here." We tripped over thick roots, tree branches clawing our faces. Behind us, the woman crawled faster, her limbs snapping like dry sticks. They later found Emily in shock, buried in a shallow pit. Mark? He was never found. And me? I still hear her voice in my sleep. Every time I pass the shadow of an abandoned caravan, my heart pounds. Is it really over? Over? Or just beginning? You don't have to believe me. Just don't camp near an abandoned caravan. Some doors should never be opened. Have you ever heard a sound that could change you forever? The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears, but in your bones and your heart? I never believed in superstitions, or negative energy as Sarah liked to call it. I thought the things that scare people in stories were confined to paper or screens, until that night. That forest, that caravan. The air was heavy, soaked with the scent of pine and damp earth, like the ground itself was breathing beneath our feet. We parked the caravan deep in the forest, far beyond phone signals. No paved roads, no signs of human life. Just towering pine trees and tangled grassy hills. I was with Jake, the eternal adventurer who thrived on reckless exploration, and Sarah, the smart and cautious one who wouldn't take a step without asking 1,000 questions. The caravan, despite its age, looked solid, rust-colored, scarred by years. Its windows were caked in grime, and the metal gave a faint creak when the wind touched it, like it was sighing. We told ourselves this was the perfect place to disconnect from the world. We didn't realize that something was already connected to us. That night, we lit a campfire, sparks popping in the air like bones cracking under heat. We roasted marshmallows and laughed at the same ghost stories everyone tells. But as midnight neared, everything changed. The wind stopped. The forest fell into a silence, indescribable. No owls, no wings, just silence. As if something had commanded all of nature to hold its breath. Then we heard it. A soft knock on the caravan's metal door from the outside. Jake laughed casually, probably a tree branch. But the knocking didn't stop. It became rhythmic, intentional. Sarah looked through the window and whispered, "There's nothing," but her cold breath fogged the glass, and then, suddenly, a giant handprint appeared. Not human, there were claws. We froze. The door handle began to tremble. Slowly, at first, then violently. We shut all the doors and windows, barricading ourselves inside, laughing nervously, trying to convince ourselves it was all just bad energy. But deep down, we knew. Something had changed. Then, the lights went out. The darkness was thick, suffocating. Even the flashlight beam looked like it was being swallowed. And then came the sound. A slow, heavy scratch across the roof. Metal being dragged by. Claws. With each scrape, the caravan tilted slightly. Something was up there. Heavy and alive. Jake shouted, "We need to leave, now!" He rushed to the driver's seat, turned the key, nothing. The engine, dead. Shadows started moving outside the windows. But they didn't move like people. They crawled, fast and low to the ground. Sarah gasped, trembling. There's a face, on the glass, sunken eyes, and a smile, so long. I mumbled, "It's just a nightmare, just a nightmare." Then came the whispers, but not from outside. They came from within the walls. A voice, laughing. "You're in my home." We held on to each other. Time stopped making sense. Minutes? Hours? We didn't know. Time didn't work normally in there. Then the floor cracked. A fissure opened beneath us, and a cold hand, bones exposed, grabbed my ankle. I screamed, kicked, pulled myself free. But Jake wasn't so lucky. A single scream, then a wet, tearing sound. Then silence. Jake vanished into the dark. There was nothing left. Sarah and I ran. We bolted through the forest. But the trees, they moved. Branches reached for us, clawing at our clothes and skin. No matter which way we turned, we ended up in the same spot. It was like the forest itself wanted to trap us. Whispers followed us. "Stay, play." A voice laughing, then crying, then whispering, "Mommy's going to be angry." We ran until we collapsed, our feet numb. We hit the ground gasping, and we stopped moving. We slept. We woke up 3 days later, or so they told us. They found us barely alive, mumbling nonsense. The police said it was a bear attack. They never found Jake, never found anything. But me, I still hear it. When I close my eyes, the whispers return. And sometimes, just sometimes, when I pass a mirror, I see something behind me. A smile, stretching from ear to ear. Was that forest cursed? Was the caravan just a gateway? I don't know. But I do know this. If you ever find yourself in a silent forest, and you see an abandoned caravan, don't knock, don't look through the windows. Because some things don't like being seen. I never considered myself a believer in the supernatural, until that cold October night, 6 months after the brutal murder of 19-year-old Christopher Kennedy by a gang at Braley Pond, just 30 minutes from Staunton, Virginia. I had rented a 24-foot caravan for a weekend getaway, but Braley Pond's reputation as one of the most haunted camping spots in America was impossible to ignore. We arrived at the primitive campsite around 4:30 p.m., with the sky already painted in autumn's red hues. The moment I stepped onto the wooden bridge that crosses the pond's entrance, a strange weight settled in my chest, a suffocating sense of dread that didn't come from within me. My friend Chris, a seasoned paranormal investigator, felt it too. We exchanged uneasy glances but pushed on, eager to collect evidence. Night fell quickly. By 9 p.m., 2 members of our small group were suddenly struck by illness, doubling over in pain and vomiting among the pine trees. Their sudden sickness was the first warning that the spirits of Braley Pond weren't content to remain in the past. Chris and I helped them back to one of the fold-out beds in the caravan while the rest gathered around a lantern, shivering in the dark. At 11:30 p.m., Chris and I decided to retrace our earlier steps alone, hoping the cold air might clear our heads. As we crossed the bridge again, I felt another presence, cold, hungry, and utterly alien. My flashlight's beam flickered across the water's surface, but there was nothing visible to justify the crushing fear that gripped me. Then it appeared, a massive, glowing orb of phosphorescent green light, suspended 30 feet above us between the pine trees, hovering silently as if waiting for us to acknowledge it. I reached for my camera, but my breath caught in my throat, and in an instant, that pulsing glow vanished. At that exact moment, a loud splashing erupted from deep within the pond, as if something enormous had been thrown into the water. Chris bolted down the wooden steps, shouting my name. I followed, my heart pounding, only to see him lifted and hurled off the path, tumbling into the murky water below, as if an invisible force had struck him mid-step. I stopped cold at the edge, paralyzed by terror, until I felt something crawling over my shoulder, like the wet, twisting body of a larva made from pure darkness. It slithered from one arm to the other, leaving behind a trail of icy horror I can still feel to this day. We ran back to the safety of the caravan. Chris's shirt was torn, his back bleeding from an unseen wound. Inside, the old radio switched on by itself, flooding the cabin with soft, childish laughter, playing on an endless, warped loop. We didn't say a word until the first light of dawn broke through the window. Even now, years later, the memory of that glowing orb and the splash that nearly claimed my friend still haunts me. Some places carry the weight of their history in the very air, and at Braley Pond the past is still alive, waiting just beyond the pine shadows.